Farmers have been in a quandary since cover crops and other conservation practices came back into prominence. The practices can help provide long-term benefits, but the short-term costs can be an obstacle, especially when prices are low. The Rural Investment to Protect Our Environment, or RIPE's Aliza Drewes explains how her nonprofit group's proposal could address those issues. She was interviewed by Farm Press contributing writer Forrest Laws.
Some farmers have been implementing conservation and soil building practices, but the benefits often are 1 to 2 or even more years down the road. How would the rural investment to protect our environment concept help encourage more growers to adopt these practices?
So we at RIPE are here because farmers have a pivotal role to play in tackling climate change, but they shouldn't sacrifice their prosperity in the process. So our proposal, RIPE 100, would offer $100 per acre for farmers that reflects the public benefits that they are providing when adopting stewardship practices. So for instance, with cover crops at $100 per acre, you would fully cover the cost of that cover crop, as well as the cost that climate policy will be imposing onto the economy through higher fertilizer costs, and would allow for about a $40 per acre return. That is a reasonable and fair return that reflects the public benefits that farmers are delivering when they implement and install that cover crop. And of course, that benefit that farmers are providing is the case whether or not they have been or have not been doing the cover crop. They are delivering that public benefit. So our program would compensate fairly and would not be penalizing early adopters who had already been doing those practices, because all farmers are contributing value any year that they adopt that practice. We conducted a few different economic analyses to arrive at that number, both from a bottom-up sense of what would the environmental benefits be when these practices are adopted. So using USDA data as well as academic literature, we looked at what the water quality, water health, carbon sequestration, air, and public health benefits are. So as those stack up, and the majority of practices were over $100 an acre. And then we also arrived at that number from a top-down analysis where we looked at what are the economic costs that farmers are going to confront as climate policy comes into our country through a variety of different policy mechanisms. And so primarily that's higher fertilizer costs, but also higher transportation and processing. And then what are the costs of stewardship practices? So we looked at the wide array of climate smart agricultural practices and looked at what those costs are in farmers, as well as the cost of climate policy, and then what would be a reasonable return above that. And so between that top-down and bottom-up analysis, $100 an acre came out as a very reasonable place to be.